Though exhausted, the man pressed on, focusing on each small victory. When they finally reached a clearing, he removed the makeshift harness. The dog, now free, ran around wildly, his energy a stark contrast to the man's fatigue. Despite the challenges, the man felt a flicker of hope. He organized his belongings, thankful for dry clothes and a moment of rest, knowing the journey was far from over. The man sat inside with the dog resting nearby, but a sudden growl outside made both of them tense up. The dog stiffened, his ears alert, growling softly as if warning of a potential threat. Whatever it was eventually moved off, leaving an uneasy silence behind. The man's thoughts drifted to a memory of his father, standing tall with a weathered face and graying beard. Just like the photograph he had seen, he remembered meeting him for the first time in years. His father's eyes lit up with joy, his arms wide open as he called out a familiar nickname. The man, however, felt hesitant and uncomfortable. He corrected his father on his name, firmly reminding him of the one he had chosen for himself years ago. His father's initial excitement faltered, but he quickly recovered, trying to make light of the situation. He gestured toward a small, weathered cabin behind him, explaining how he planned to expand it. His father talked about living off the grid, away from society, and seemed proud of the isolated life he had built. But the man couldn't shake the unease growing inside him. The forest stretched endlessly, and there was no sign of civilization for miles. As his father spoke about how they would live out there together, the man's mind raced. He considered asking someone to take him back, but he knew that returning meant facing the uncertainty of foster care and a life he didn't want. Yet staying here seemed impossible. The isolation and his father's strange demeanor only added to his fears. Dinner was announced, breaking the tense moment. The dog barked loudly, his powerful voice echoing through the area. The man froze, fear gripping him. He had always been wary of dogs, especially after an accident that left him fragile and cautious of physical strain. His father laughed it off, assuring him the dog wouldn't bite unless ordered. But the man couldn't relax. The barking continued until his father snapped at the dog to stop. The dog obeyed immediately but kept watching the man with an intensity that unnerved him. That was how their uneasy relationship began, two wary souls bound together in a wilderness full of uncertainties. The man knew that the dog, despite his initial fear, might be the key to his survival. The journey begins slowly. The rain thins under the trees, and the young woman takes careful steps despite her aching leg and twisted back. She knows she must pace herself to avoid worsening her condition. Her mind drifts back to a time of recovery, after an accident, remembering the steady encouragement of someone important, whose words guided her through pain and struggle. Those memories give her the strength to move forward. Her loyal companion stays close by, his anxious gaze scanning the woods. When he whimpers, she reassures him softly, though the words feel hollow even to her. Together, they navigate the forest until they reach a familiar rock formation. The slanted side creates a small, sheltered space, enough to offer some protection. She sets her backpack beneath the overhang but keeps moving, knowing rest will only make her body seize up. Surveying the clearing, she spots fallen branches from a recent storm. A plan takes shape using the downed trees to build a lean-to against the rock. She focuses on the task, channeling her thoughts into survival. The work is slow and grueling. Using a hatchet, she cuts a long birch tree into manageable pieces, her muscles burning from the effort. With limited tools, she loops her belt and a strap to drag the logs, inching forward step by step. Each movement feels like a victory, though exhaustion tugs at her. As the structure begins to take shape, the weight of her injuries becomes undeniable. She pauses, leaning against her companion for support, his steady presence a comfort. Her father's advice echoes in her mind: when strength fails, rely on smart thinking. She realizes she must gather everything she needs before her energy and medication wear off. Shelter is vital, but she decides fire will come first. The rain-soaked forest feels cold and unwelcoming. The thought of warmth and light spurs her determination. Yet, without matches or proper tools, the task feels daunting. Still, she laughs bitterly at the idea of rubbing sticks together. The struggle is far from over, but she clings to hope, determined to survive one step at a time. The day begins with a mix of exhaustion and determination. The girl feels like giving up, but she forces herself to stand, whistling for her loyal companion. With her backpack and rifle in hand, she heads towards the beach, dragging her injured leg behind her. Along the way, she finds a sturdy stick to use as a walking aid, which helps her push forward despite the pain and fatigue. As she approaches the cabin, the smell of charred wood fills the air. The sight of the burned remnants is overwhelming. The cabin, once built with care and love by her father, is now a pile of ashes. Memories flood her mind as she recalls how her father meticulously constructed the cabin from hand-picked logs, shaping it into a sturdy home. Now, only fragments of blackened logs remain. The devastation feels too personal, too painful, like digging through a grave. Despite the heartache, she forces herself to search for anything useful. Near the cabin's edge, she discovers the axe head, scorched but intact. She adds it to her backpack, her hands blackened with soot. The nearby shed offers little hope the fire has consumed most of it. However, a corner of the shed remains untouched, sheltering a few glass jars. Although empty, she recognizes their potential and takes some with her. Dragging her bad leg, she reaches the lake. Each step is a struggle, but she manages to fill the jars with water, knowing she'll need to boil it later. As she looks around the desolate shore, the loneliness of the wilderness sinks in. The silence feels endless, pressing against her like a weight. Despair begins to creep in, but a sudden splash catches her attention. Fish leap from the lake, offering a glimmer of hope. Nearby, she spots a canoe, flipped upside down. Inside, she finds a first aid kit, rope, and a tackle box filled with fishing supplies. The discovery ignites a spark of optimism. The canoe means mobility, a chance to explore and survive. She smiles at the lake, daring to believe she might make it. For the first time, hope replaces despair. But as she feels a sliver of confidence, she unknowingly edges closer to danger, blind to the mistakes yet to come.